And welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate everyone continuing to join us. We want to continue to get the latest updates from the tragedy out in Texas as the number of deaths continue to rise. Fox News' Connor Hansen now joining us with the latest here. Connor.
Hi, Mike. And as those numbers rise, the clock is ticking for rescue crews who are looking for victims who may have been swept away by these floodwaters. Just for reference, where we're standing right now, at the peak on Friday, that floodwater would have been higher than my head where I'm standing right now. The death toll climbing higher Monday as rescue and recovery crews comb through areas devastated by this weekend's flooding. Tanya Powell's daughter Ella is one of those still unaccounted for. She last heard from Ella's friends on Friday when floodwaters were rising around her daughter's house.
She said, "Tell my parents that I love them," and then that's the last we've heard from them.
Officials describe the damage as catastrophic. Nearby states and firefighters from Mexico mobilizing their own crews to assist. For now, Texans are rolling up their sleeves and getting to work on cleanup efforts.
This is our home, you know, and it's I always look at it, if I was in these people's positions, how would I feel and what would I want?
Disabled Army veteran Daniel Carlton has friends who died and says he feels a responsibility to help.
Services revolves around my life, in uniform, out of uniform, so I get out here and do what I can.
Scott Ruskin is a Coast Guard rescue swimmer who responded to Camp Mystic. He's been credited with saving 165 people from the floodwaters.
That's just what any Coast Guard rescue swimmer and or any Coast Guard member would have done in that situation. So I was just doing my job.
And the threat may not be over. There is still the chance of rain in the forecast heading into tomorrow. Mike.
Connor Hansen, thanks so much for the update. So we appreciate it as always. And there is going to be a live news conference tomorrow with officials. Of course, we will take you there when that does happen and play it out in full. All right, everyone. I do want to continue our coverage here this evening and bring in our next guest to help bring in some more analysis as well as insight on this tragedy and talk a little bit about the weather and just really a little bit more about this massive amounts of flooding. So let's now join in our next guest here, meteorologist Troy Kimmel, who has really been focusing in on the state of Texas for years now. So I'm so glad that you could join us, Troy, with the latest. And Troy, first off, what did you think here when you were just seeing the images coming out of Texas?
You know, Mike, thank you for the invitation to be with you tonight. Before I get to that, I have to talk about Connor's shot that we just saw and him standing by the river and the beautiful sunset that we saw in Kerrville, Texas just now as the sun was getting lower in the sky. I think this is what Texans expect on our rivers and streams in the state. And we had a holiday last week. We had the 4th of July. People were going to Fredericksburg and to Kerrville areas down in the hill country to just be able to enjoy the type of views that you saw in Connor's live shot. And the reason I mention that is because that's what most Texans are used to. And then we snuck up on last Thursday and Friday, and I have been through enough of these events. We have been through this. In fact, I worry tonight that I'm hoping we can learn some lessons from this in the state of Texas. We don't have a real good understanding, and this is a nationwide problem, about what we do. Water, when it's moving down these creeks and streams, and you have a wall of water moving by, people sometimes think of water as being their friend. They don't think that water can kill them. And I'm telling you, we've all seen the video the last couple of days of this huge walls of water coming down, and you can only imagine in the middle of the night when we see most flash floods occur. Look at this video. This is amazing on the Guadalupe River, folks. This is sped up, but still Can you imagine that if you had to deal with that and you're on that riverside in a camp? And I tell you tonight, as a meteorologist, I'm heartbroken by what we see. I will tell you that I think the National Weather Service in Austin, San Antonio, our local office here, did an amazing job. I know, Mike, the people that hit the buttons that night on the computer and sent the warnings. And I'll tell you, Mike, I would trust my life with them. I think they did a good job. Are we perfect? Or is Mike or Troy, anyone exactly perfect in what we do? No. And I think we can improve in the future. But I'm going to tell you, the initial calls at some state and local levels that we got no warning does not hold any, there's no truth in that. The warnings and the watches were out. I think, Mike, it's going to come down to, have we learned our lessons enough in 78 and 87 when we've had multiple fatalities? This is the worst, but we've seen them before. Can we learn lessons on this and somehow teach people that they are responsible for their own safety? We've got to, every one of us have plans. Every one of us, everyone watching tonight, you need a plan. You say, well, Troy, I don't see that much bad weather where I am. Well, do you see house fires where you are at 1:30 in the morning with your kids in the house? Do you know what you're going to do if that house starts burning at 1:30 in the morning? You have a plan for that. And you have the same sort of plans for this type of weather as well. I want to see some of the questions we're going to have to look at. I want to see some of the emergency operation plans, Mike, from some of these camps along the river. And some people will say, well, Troy, they're a privately owned camp. They don't have to. Yes, they do. I've got a group of volunteers that I work with in TXR, which is Texas Search and Rescue. I've got two crews now out in the field that are having to recover bodies and seeing things that, Mike, none of us in our lives should ever see. We need to see these emergency operation plans. We need to know how they work. We've got to learn something from this, and now's not the time. Now's the time for recovery. But in pretty short order, we're going to have to come and take a deep look at how we do emergency management. I contribute to that through weather forecasting, which is an imperfect science, by the way. I'll admit that right now. We're not perfect. But on the other hand, the Weather Service in their weather watch for flash floods last Thursday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, shortly thereafter, mentioned 3 to 7 inches of rain. Mike, in the Texas Hill Country, we have a hilly environment by the name. We have subsoil limestone layers, which cause water to run off even more quickly, and increased urbanization. 3 to 7 inches in the Texas Hill Country is not good under any standards. Now, so it was 15 to 20 or 10 to 15 in some areas. People have to be able to pay attention a little more, and we have to have a plan, and we must. I'd love, Mike, in a way, if we could have emergency managers and weather service people and our first responders, our police, go to door and tell people what to do. But that can't happen, Mike. We need to have plans, and we need to be able to exercise them, and we need to know how to follow them in case of severe weather, inclement weather like this.
Yeah, you know, it's so well said what you said there, Troy. And I think I want to go back to the one statement you made there, talking about just how powerful and destructive water can be. I think a lot of people, when they think about the destruction of water, they immediately go to what a hurricane can do, right? They think about, right, okay, the surge of a hurricane and what that water can do, but they don't think about the effects of a major flood.
Right, exactly. And go back, Mike, is this not very long ago in our memory? What happened in the Western Carolinas? We had a hurricane move into Florida, and then what happened in the Carolinas was essentially the same thing we're seeing here that happened in Texas. Water began to run downhill. People lived in these scenic areas like we saw in Connor's live shot, and all of a sudden they were swept to their deaths. We've just got to do a better job. We've got to do a better job, frankly, in communicating that. And I think we have to become better critical thinkers in this country. Right now, that's a trick in 2025. We've got to become better critical thinkers about our safety and what we do to protect ourselves and our families.
And Troy, how is it, do you think, the life that we live in now, the world that we live in with this fast-paced environment of wanting to know things now, we live in the social media age as well. Why do you think communication is still an issue when it comes to weather alerts?
I think that, and I'll tell you, as much as I think the Weather Service did a good job that night, I think one problem that we have in this country is there is an overwarning of people by the Weather Service to some degree. If you look at severe thunderstorm warnings sometimes, and there are a lot of them, and I think there's a certain warning fatigue you have to be concerned about, and I think we have to look at that. There have been places in the country like National Weather Service Birmingham where they've looked at that carefully, and they've actually seen their verification numbers go up. So I'm hoping we'll see that in other Weather Service offices as well. The problem in 2025, Mike, in a lot of cases, is I can look over there to the east and tell people the sun rises over there, and within 30 minutes, I'll have half the people cancel me because they don't agree with me. That's kind of the state we are with critical thought in this country. And I think it may not be directly tied to this, but we've got to start sitting down and having discussions and agree to disagree and come up with solutions. That's what this is all about.
And that's so true, because at the end of the day, when it comes to weather events, it doesn't matter if you're getting the information from a blue governor or a red governor, right? I mean, at the end of the day, right. I mean, this is for saving lives.
Exactly, and it's just something we have to seriously take a look at and have critical discussion and critical thought about things, and come and meet in the middle in a lot of these cases and discuss it. One thing I would tell you in closing, Mike, is whatever you do, if you have one of these, make sure you know where the alerts are on your phone. Make sure that the WEA alerts are on. The WEA is a WEA alert that is created by FEMA. And I will tell you, every one of those that the Austin San Antonio office issued for alarmed, and those alarms on these phones, Mike, will wake you up. Now, unfortunately, what we find is some people get irritated by that and turn them back off. And guess what? If someone tells me they didn't get the warning because of that, I'm not buying it. That's what it is there for. Get a weather radio, NOAA weather radio, NOAA National Weather Service, all hazards radio, all around the country. Most of the country is covered by it. The Weather Service is providing a radio broadcast for you that alarms in case of severe weather. Get one of those to protect your family. Find out the ways that you can do to offer safety to your family and to yourself in these severe and inclement weather events.
So well said. Troy, thanks so much for coming on here this evening. We really appreciate your insights on this matter. Thanks again for being with us, and you have a great night.
Mike, thank you for the invitation. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Me as well. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, everyone. We do want to continue our coverage right now. Let's go out to Fox 26 in Houston as they're continuing to provide the latest coverage.
And posing risks to drivers right now. Authorities advise using major roads at this time. Now, anchor Caroline Collins is joining us live from Kerrville this evening. And Caroline, how are things looking where you are right now?
Well, Rashi, it's like everywhere you turn in Kerrville along the river, there's just more damage, and the scope of that gets bigger and bigger. We arrived here this afternoon, and we ended up in Ingram, Texas, which is kind of between Kerrville and Hunt, and we were routed basically in this neighborhood where a bridge was nearly taken out. There was tons of debris. There were people searching through that debris with excavators, volunteers, even Texas EquiSearch was out there doing what they can to try to help and kind of going towards some what they call leads. That might be a smell or a piece of clothing in a certain area, but stuff is just popping up all over this river. Right now we are in Kerrville along the Guadalupe River. And out here, you can see the devastation in the daylight. Really, it's clear. The trees are all slanted. There's debris everywhere. We've tried to light up what you can, but it really is just shocking to see the scope and the magnitude of this damage. Now, for the past couple of days since July 4th, when this all happened, we've been getting updates from authorities twice a day. Today, we received one update earlier this morning. So our next big update is going to be tomorrow at 10 a.m. All ears and eyes will be on that. Fox 26 will make sure to update you with that. But it's just been an emotional day getting here and seeing this all in person, talking to some of the locals saying that their town is just unrecognizable at this point. And they drive these roads every single day, and now it looks like a completely different place. So people are emotional. A lot of people have ties to those who are being confirmed as either missing or dead, and it's an emotional time for this small, tight-knit town who's just grieving what happened on July 4th, Rashi.
Caroline, I know that there's so much destruction out there. You've probably seen people around maybe searching, maybe trying to lend a helping hand. What has that really been like? Because I know it's just so emotional also just being there.
It is emotional just to even look at it. For the first 10 minutes when we arrived on scene, we were sort of just processing it and taking it in, because all you can think about is these rushing waters and these people who, were trying to cling to objects to float or climb trees to be rescued. So now what we're seeing is local people coming out, joining authorities, bringing out their chainsaws and bringing out their equipment that they can, and just hoping to provide some closure or bring some of these people home who have lost their lives. I think that it's the fact that we still have so many people unaccounted for, especially those girls at Camp Mystic. I mean, 10 of those campers are still unaccounted for, and those families are just waiting and waiting, losing hope day after day. So it's tough for sure, and it's the whole town is quiet and somber, and even tense at times as these search and rescues kind of ramp up. We've seen the Coast Guard flying over. I've seen fire departments from cities all over the place. So it definitely is somewhere that everybody is trying to pitch in and help and do the best that they can. But this damage is extensive, and Kerrville and the cities that are along the Guadalupe River are not going to look the same for a really long time.
I know that we experience a lot of flooding here in the Houston area. Can you even compare it to something that maybe we've seen recently? I know that it's just so hard to do, but I know we've experienced flooding before.
Yeah, that's a good question, Rashi, because when we are covering flooding, it's typically tied to a hurricane or some type of big storm that rips through the area. What we saw with this was they got a lot of rain in a short amount of time, and the damage is right around the Guadalupe River, and then you kind of go into town and everything's fine. But the area kind of spanning along the Guadalupe River is what is damaged. But, there might be a grocery store far enough behind that it wasn't impacted by all the water that rose, and it's business as usual. So it's interesting because along the river, it's total destruction. But then once you work your way up further, businesses are open and people are going about their day. So it's interesting to see the tragedy that unfolded and just right along the banks of the river and how many people were impacted by that.